There we go.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to turn my microphone off real quick because I can hear a little person coming up the stairs.
Oh, no problem. Cool.
Sorry, I thought they were all distracted with their Khan Academy kids and whatever, but I guess not.
No worries. That happens. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, Miss Molly Bradford. I'm hoping that you can give us a quick introduction to yourself and your businesses. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Molly Bradford and zooming in from the Rattlesnake. And I own a couple businesses locally, MissoulaEvents.net and Missoula Indoor Ads. And then MissoulaEvents.net is powered by Gatherboard, which is our software product that we sell in North America right now. Awesome. And it hosts about 45 different calendars, sort of like MissoulaEvents.net around, Canada, United States, and Mexico.
Awesome. Thank you. And how's it been going out there for you with business and the changes and event providers? How's it going?
Yeah. It's really weird. I'm sure everybody says that. Our weird looks like this. About a month ago, I was actually living in Mexico with my kids. We just returned to the United States a week ago today, unexpectedly. And I was working with my employee who's was still here in Missoula. And we have an intern from Missoula who's actually quarantined in Spain on her study abroad. And the three of us were pretty much canceling every single event in Missoula indefinitely on MissoulaEvents.net, which is super depressing when normally we have 50 or even 100 events a day posted on the calendar. So we also had to have a pretty big team meeting and decide to cancel Missoula Indoor Ads, which are the bathroom ads in about 268 frames in 70 locations around Missoula. We've never not hung up the bathroom ads for over a decade, actually for like 15 years. So we actually just canceled them as of yesterday for May as well. So that's what it looks like for us. Luckily, it's a really lean staff. I haven't had to lay off Lori. We were able to get the PPL loan and it's already funded to cover our salaries, our wages. And we'd set ourselves up with a line of credit long ago with our bank, and we speak early and often with our banker and our accountant and our lawyer. So I felt really taken care of, and like I had just a great rapport as a human for what I needed from those things, because I was applying for all of that when I was still in Mexico. So it was like weird. So that's how it looks right now. Canceling events, adding events. When are we going to start adding in-person events? You know, how does that look? Where yeah. So that's how it looks right now.
Okay, let's talk about the CARES Act. And so you've received your PPP loan or a grant, what have you. Yeah, like hopefully, you know, for given funds. Can you tell us a little bit about that process, like maybe where you started? And as of today, we did get news that the funds are out. So, but that many banks, depending on the bank, just for anybody who's on this call who's curious, depending on the bank, they're still going to be taking and preparing applications. So when or if, but hopefully when more funds are available, people can just plug and play their applications. And if you have more questions, go to umt.edu/bear where we can help you more. But anyway, okay, keep going. Sorry, CARES Act.
Yeah, no problem. And I will just say we did not apply for the, what is it, EIDL, the EIDL, or Emergency Disaster Relief. And maybe we should have, and that's also been, you know, funded out. I might do an application, I might not. I feel pretty good with the funds that we have. The other thing is I still have monthly recurring revenues from my license holders. We've lost 2 license holders. We've given some different payment terms to a few that have reached out, trying to be as flexible as possible. I'd rather someone's calendar stay open. And we've actually gained 2 new customers this week who have just contracted and paid because they realized their communities really needed a calendar, even to keep track of everything happening virtually. Mm-hmm. So I've been kind of wearing like, how do I help Missoula? But then I'm also wearing like, how do I help these communities, these 45 communities across North America? And I've told them about what I've applied for and what I've done and what I post locally. So my banker, I went for security and they were super proactive. And I emailed, I'm on a weekly Zoom call with a bunch of local business women. And so I got some great information from a lot of them that are sadly in a far worse position than I am because they, own buildings or have inventory and far larger staffs than I do. However, I wasn't even thinking to call my banker and say, hey, can I have interest only for 6 months on my business loan, for instance. So I reached out, that was finished within like an hour. So now I don't have to make my business loan payments. So that reduced a ton of my costs. And then I was on his email and he started doing bulk emails to all of his business customers with all the attachments and when they needed to be in. And so I had all of my stuff filled out and ready to him. And it was supposed to launch on like Friday the 2nd or whenever it was, but it really was Thursday at 10 p.m. Well, he got my stuff on Thursday at 11 p.m. And so I was in really fast. It's a very small amount of money compared to a lot of businesses. And I just noticed this week that it was funded. So it was, for me, I felt like it was easy, but I also had a lot of good information. And I was reading all the emails I was getting from my lawyer, from my accountant, from my bank, from my senator, from my governor. From you guys, I just read them, Mm-hmm. The other thing I would say is we considered laying ourselves off and taking unemployment. But then I thought I had a really good chance at the PPL loan. So I said, let's just not do that. So there's a lot of stuff to consider depending on what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And then my accountant reached out recently to ask if I needed help preparing any of the documentation to get those loans. And I said, I just got PPL. And so they are doing a low level of free help just to make sure you're prepared, which is great, and help me put it into my QuickBooks correctly and do all that. Awesome. And said if I do decide to put in one of those idle applications and be in the waiting line, that they can help me produce the correct reports. So it was overwhelming because I had the same information being sent to me from 17 different sources. However, the process itself I found to be very simple.
Okay, that's great. So I'd say like some really great takeaways, like what we've been telling everybody, and the first step that a lot of Missoula has agreed on is contact your banker. First and foremost, contact your banker. So that's really great to hear that First Security did an awesome job, and we've been hearing a lot of great things about our local banks and credit unions who are participating. And just to be clear, it's PPP for this one, and then EIDL is EIDL. So different programs, and you can, as you've alluded to, you can apply for both. So anybody on this call is curious about that, can do both. And in the wake, even though that there aren't funds now, we're hopeful that there will be funds, soon. I don't know what that means in government terms right now, but we're hoping that that gets refunded, but it's contingent upon Congress. So really interesting, Molly, too. And I'm curious, how have you decided to use your funds? Like how, so you, and I want to come back to that idea too, between your thought process and what on unemployment versus PPP. But before we go there, I'm curious about how you're using those PPP funds.
Well, really it is covering payroll because I eliminated the majority of my loan payments. I don't carry a lot of overhead. I still have monthly recurring revenues from my license holders. aside from payroll and payroll taxes, my largest expense is for programming, right? Like the keeping Gatherboard and all the features working and you know, just the cloud, like paying Amazon, the cloud, hosting, programming, turning on sites, fixing things. And I work with a local company on that. And luckily, before I left for Mexico, we got my Amazon bill reduced by almost half because we realized some stuff was wrong. That's been really great. And then also, I reached out to them and I said, look, I need to reduce the work that you're doing for me to this level unless there's a crisis with my software, and I'm going to be slow to pay my March bill. And they're like, fine.
Cool. That's
right.
Awesome. Yeah.
Because I realized people were reaching out to me saying, I don't know if I can pay. I'm like, let's figure it out. So then I just reached out to them because I can't really do that with Amazon. But I can.
And sorry, if you could mute your mic, that would be awesome. It's just showing up on you. Thanks.
And I invited Lori, that's who just joined the call, to come in because she was left here on the front lines handling everything while I was gone.
Great.
And I feel like she might have some really good information or insight on some of the questions you wanted to ask us. So if she does, I would just say, Lori, unmute your mic and chime in.
Perfect. Okay, great.
She was probably, I know that she felt more stress and panic and anxiety than I did because she was sitting in here in Missoula watching every single business close and every single event cancel. And she was carrying that physically and emotionally far more than I was. And so I felt that that would be an important perspective.
Yeah, love it. Okay, excellent. Welcome. Okay, so for you, you don't have a mortgage that you're carrying for the business. So really it's PPP is going toward your payroll, sustaining you for the next 8 weeks.
Yeah, like I said, we have some monthly recurring revenues still coming in from the licenses plus PPP, but the loss of indoor is over 50% of our monthly revenue, and indoor ads is almost pure profit. So that is a tremendous loss of income for us.
Yeah, dang it. So you've renegotiated some of your contracts. That's something else we ask. That sounds great. So that's been helping. And then this might be, Lori, where you and Molly both chime in together. I'm curious how, like, part of this call, we wanted to talk about your clients because you largely support people who are doing in-person things. And so maybe you can tell us if you've heard of any pivots that some of these event creators are making to sustain their businesses, and if there's anything cool that you've seen come through your calendar where you've been like, oh my gosh, that's amazing that these people are making such quick, fast pivots.
I'll just touch on a couple really quick and then let Lori chime in. For instance, the Zach mini show, they do this massive fundraiser at the Wilma with art and entertainment and dinner, and they very quickly switched it to online, and they had their silent auction, and then a few of them actually went down to the gallery and did the live auction live. And they did other cute things, like at noon, the theme was rainbows or something. Like at noon, put your rainbows on. At 5, have a Zoom cocktail party with your friends who you'd normally sit with. At 6, join the live auction. And I think they did really well. And so I thought that was really cool. And we pushed that out on the site. So we created a featured event and a series of events that was on their venue page. And then people could see the mini show featured ad scrolling across. And when they went to it, they'd get all the different things happening this week about the mini show on the Zach site. Likewise, Guts just had the YWCA Guts and Grit program does the LunaFest films, and they had to switch those to online this week. So we were able to help them with a similar scenario. And I just got an e-newsletter from the YWCA saying, They are only $3,000 from their goal, and their silent auction is open for the rest of the week. So that was super cool. And the last one, hold on real quick. The last one, hold on. Lori, why don't you chime in real quick?
Okay, so some of the things that I noticed right away were things like that, where people went virtual with things like art shows. And I thought that was really great. Like, well, we can still do it, you know? And also the restaurants that immediately picked up on, okay, we're going to offer these, you know, to go and take out kind of things. I really liked how SJ at the West Side Theater saw it as an opportunity. And she was like, oh, we can offer our space for people to use for their virtual events, whatever they're going to be. And that for me was really made me feel hopeful and was inspiring that people could get creative and get on and start doing things. Because like Molly was saying, when first things started being canceled, it was, I don't know, it was crushing. It was soul crushing, because every day would be more things canceled and we didn't know for how long. So there was this uncertainty. And then when people started stepping up and going, okay, this is how we can do it. Or the live on stream Sequester Fest, when they decided to have this music festival all day long one Saturday. That was really great. So yeah, those are some examples.
Thank you.
Yeah. The last one I wanted to mention was Missoula Gives is coming up pretty soon here, and it's through the Missoula Community Foundation, and it's this massive 36-hour nonprofit giving, and we often help sponsor that with a ton of indoor ads and online ads and a tag on the site and all this stuff. And so we helped connect them with some people who know how to do online giving really well, and who are here locally. And they are helping Missoula Gives figure out how to switch that whole thing to online. And then some of the nonprofits that I am on the email list for, I've been getting their little videos like, watch our video for Missoula Gives. And so you can still go and like watch all the nonprofits Missoula Gives videos, and you can still vote and then be prepared to give. And so these are like really massive events that bring in hundreds and thousands of dollars that are doled out to different nonprofits. And when I look at that, when I look at the United Way creating relief fund, when I look at the YMCA having emergency worker childcare, when I look at the Missoula County Public Schools delivering lunches every single day on the bus route to any kid, it doesn't matter if you're an MCPS kid. And I just watched my neighbor kids, while Lori was talking, run out the door to go grab a lunch and have a picnic. And I just think that's amazing. So we find those little nuggets. We try to figure out how to put them on the site. And Betta, I'll just forward her the Arts Missoula e-newsletter, or I'll forward her the MEP newsletter, or I'll say, can you please go on Facebook and just scour events for the next 2 weeks? Because there's so many art tours and live stream couch concerts, and I'm not seeing them in Facebook and I'm not finding them. So I want those on the site. And now I'm like overwhelmed with how much cool stuff is happening that we can put on there. And then Lori and I have to quickly write a message and send it out to Gatherboard and say, hey, 45 calendars, this is what we're doing in Missoula. Are you doing this? Like, here's an example of how you can thrive right now.
Paul, I think you had a question.
I do indeed. Hey, Molly. It's good to see you. Although I kind of preferred seeing your kind of pictures from the beach in Mexico. So
I know. I did like that backdrop as well.
Yeah, no, indeed. So I'm curious, particularly with, I mean, obviously you've always been about live sort of in-person events, and a live in-person event happens, it's gone, right? So you're always about the future. But with so many of these events, and this is an example, right? We're interviewing you, we're recording it. That content is there for posterity and we'll be sharing it on our Facebook. Are you thinking about how you might create access to some of these events? I mean, not all events necessarily will warrant rewatching later. But I can imagine quite a lot of these events that you're helping track now that are online are creating great content that people want to go back to. You think about that?
So I have, and we should probably have an appointment, Paul, because that's a great question. But here's the thing. Right now, you can always search archived events on Missoula Events.
Okay.
And I'm not quite sure how I could meaningfully just show archived events, right? Because I don't know what Paul wants to see or what Morgan wants to see or Lori or Molly. It's totally different for all of us. However, it would be great if I could quickly figure out a way, even when people came to the site, for there to be just a little window that said, did you know that you can search the archives if you missed a Zoom call, right? Because I don't think that people necessarily know when they hit search, there's a little box that says search archived events. So we keep the archive live for up to 3 years. We can't keep it longer than that, or they go away.
Will that search enable you, I mean, given you have the different kinds of categories? So if I'm like kind of, hey, I want to see if there's some great recorded music that I can watch,
yes.
or I want to go see some virtual art.
You could click music, archived events, and a date range, and search what's happened.
Yeah, because even I love that. Anyway, we're going into appointment mode, but I was like, I would freaking love to go to the Zach virtual art thing that I missed, and I have heard about from several people. But so interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know if they recorded it or not. So right. That depends. But what that makes me think is like, hey, Lori, let's do some of our social media around, did you know you can search the archive if you missed a show in March or April? Just click this button, and just push that out.
Well, and your point just then, Molly, you need to be able to find out which events did record and where are they recorded,
right?
Wherever they.
And I that's not something I can backtrack, but people could search and check, and that also means I could send that out to our license holders too and say, hey, encourage your community to use the archive.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to keep my dev costs super low right now, I'm reticent to spend money on enhancing the software for something that might just be temporary, because I don't have millions of dollars, and I'm not, Amazon or venture funded. However, this makes me think, wouldn't that be cool if we just added a little button that said, virtual event recorded? And so then in perpetuity, there are often town hall meetings with your politicians or university sessions like this that are virtual.
Yep.
And I think people will have more virtual events than ever before and record them.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, it gets to it, and we've got a call or another one of these sessions tomorrow with Mike Braun and Sid Graff, where we're talking about sort of what does the new normal look like, and it seems pretty likely, right, that kind of the new normal is going to have an increasing number of online events. So it's not like you would do this for 2 months and then people wouldn't care anymore. It still feels like something that would likely build into your platform in the long run.
Yeah, totally. Like I thought about it a little, but not to this extent. So thank you for asking, because now I'm going to have to think about it.
Yeah. Well, even if it was a tiny little button when somebody was filling out their event card, and then you could sort.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Checkbox.
A little button. Yeah, because then in the search window, that same little checkbox could be there. And
Then the question is, will they have the ability to go back and edit the event and potentially put in the recording link so that people have a fast way to...
You can edit past events, and if you have a venue page or a feature page and a login, you can do it yourself. Otherwise, we have to do it for you. Right. And Paul and Morgan, you and I have talked about this, but just for people on the call, we had a whole series of things that we were hoping to be working on and implementing in the second half of this year. And part of my working sabbatical in Mexico while my kids were going to school was to pencil a lot of that out. And none of that has happened. So I would love to think that, there's some universal login capabilities and people can edit past things, and having updated links in something like a recorded live stream in an archive would be exactly the reason, another reason to do that.
So really quick, I want to backtrack for a second, only because I know it's been a really common question we've been having on a lot of these calls and just through FAQs. I'm curious, Molly, can you tell us in a minute, what pushed you to do PPP versus applying for unemployment? And I'm just curious too, like, I'm assuming you wanted to keep working on your business, so unemployment wouldn't necessarily let you do that. But can you talk a little to that? Do you have some insights for other people on the call?
Well, we're a super small staff and we do have recurring revenues, and we still had a lot of work we needed to do to keep the business running, and we don't have a ton of overhead. And I was hopeful that 10 weeks, right? Was it 10 weeks?
8, I think.
8.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it was,
Yeah.
would get us through to a point where things were starting to happen again a little bit. But also the main reason was because I felt like it was going to get turned into a grant. I feel confident that it will get turned into a grant. And we don't have a lot of overhead. We don't have a ton of debt, and we have a good line of credit that has a ton of room on it. And so I would rather have that loan and even be talking about renegotiating the terms of that loan with my local banker, which I know can happen much more quickly than dealing with unemployment and attached and a furlough and then reemployment. And then do we have to prove that we're looking for a new job? I mean, like, no, I didn't want to deal with that. And so in our situation, while I was evaluating everything, I was deciding that I would just go for the payment protection.
Okay.
Payroll protection.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thanks for that. I think that's important. So I guess to end this, we're right at 12:30. Do you have any advice for other entrepreneurs who are facing challenges with their business, or any takeaways that might have surprised you during this time from your colleagues and business?
Well, I'm super impressed with how people are figuring out like really personal, meaningful collaboration. Part of the reason I do this call with a bunch of business women once a week, my business is so different than theirs, is just to listen and hear what they're dealing with. And a lot of them are in retail or food service. And to hear them talk about how can we collaborate and make almost like a Stitch Fix box that's like a Missoula Fix box for Mother's Day, and people can like choose it and then buy from different retailers and then have their box delivered or send one to their mom, or just like things like that. I think that's going to stick even after this, right? Like if I left Missoula, I'd want my quarterly Missoula Fix box, you know? And so I think there's some really neat things like that happening. And the number of musicians that are giving living room concerts is blowing my mind. And then I've seen people reach out to a local musician and say, hey, can I commission you to write a song for my wife for her birthday or for my mom? And then they send their mom the song, or the musician plays it for them in a live Zoom, and then they record it.
Oh.
Like the musicians being supported. You're like, I'm such a crier. I can't believe I'm not crying right now. And so there's all these little things, or like Lori said, when the West Side Theater said, people who want to come in and Zoom their fitness class can come in and book a time in our studio, and then we'll clean the studio between, you know, the single instructor in there. That stuff's awesome, right?
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. So.
It's so symbolic of what our community is made of. I think we're such a uniquely tied community. So I love hearing those stories. I think we all love hearing those stories of how we're just rising to the challenge.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And the women's business call that I'm on is a small group of women, and we've all been friends for a long time and have used a similar business consultant, and she just gathered us in for a call. So it's not like a big open thing, but I will say, then reach out to some of your trusted business friends and make your own weekly call just to catch up on, what are you doing about this holiday? Did you apply for this loan? Have you gotten your mortgage for your, business real estate forgiven for, a few months or whatever? Because even if someone's in a totally different industry than you, you still learn a lot about what's going on.
So true. I hear that from a lot of entrepreneurs who get together from different industries. And I would say also, don't forget that Paul and I are always available to brainstorm with you. If you have a business idea or a business that you're working on, we love strategy and considering the opportunities that lie within this pandemic. And then in addition, there's the BEAR program. I mentioned that earlier, umt.edu/BEAR. Feel free to check that website out if you really need some support, whether it's through the CARES Act or just general strategy questions. And Molly, I can't thank you enough for coming on and being so open and honest with everyone. I think it's going to be really great content that hopefully helps some people out. So I'm really, really grateful to you.
Thank you for the opportunity. And if you are doing something virtual, you can post it to MissoulaEvents.net.
Yes, absolutely. MissoulaEvents.net. Don't forget it. And it sounds like we're going to all be using that archive feature. We're going to be checking out things that we've missed.
Yeah. I better get that one going.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thanks to everybody who joined, and check out tomorrow at noon. Paul will be talking about what happens in the future. What does the future of our work situations look like? What does the future of entrepreneurship look like? So feel free to join in on that conversation as well. Okay. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.